In the quiet hours just before midnight on June 9, 1994, a frantic 911 call pierced the silence of a San Clemente, California, home. "She's not breathing. I've tried CPR, but she's not responding." Paul Curry's voice trembled as he pleaded for help. Paramedics rushed to the scene, but it was too late. Linda Curry, a vibrant career woman with a radiant smile, was pronounced dead. No heartbeat. No pulse. The official cause? Catastrophic nicotine poisoning. Levels so high they defied comprehension. But Linda wasn't a smoker. She never touched a cigarette. So how did a lethal dose of one of the world's deadliest poisons end up in her system? This is a story for true crime enthusiasts who crave a puzzle wrapped in deception. A tale that evolves from love to betrayal, where the stakes are nothing less than justice for a woman whose trust became her undoing. If you don't stay until the end, you'll miss the chilling truth behind a killer who thought he was too smart to be caught. Background and setup: Linda Curry was the kind of woman who lit up a room. In the late 1980s, at 45 years old, she was a force, tall, stylish, and fiercely independent. A self-proclaimed fashionista, she matched her earrings to her purses and her shoes to her outfits with meticulous care. Friends described her as a whirlwind of energy, always ready to dance the night away or plan her next adventure. Linda was absolutely fun, her close friend Mary Siebold recalled. "We'd put on our high heels, fix our hair and makeup, and hit the town." Working at Southern California Edison inside the San Onofre nuclear power plant, Linda had climbed the ranks from secretary to management, earning a six-figure salary and a reputation as a go-getter. Her dream home in San Clemente, with its sweeping views and elegant decor, was a testament to her success. A place where a princess would live, according to her friend Frankie Thurber. But beneath the glamorous exterior, Linda's personal life had its share of turbulence. She'd been married twice before, both marriages ending in divorce. For 8 years, she dated Bill Sandretto, a life insurance salesman who adored her vibrant personality but bristled at her extravagant spending. For every dollar she made, she spent two, Bill said, shaking his head. Their relationship fizzled, and Linda was single again, until she met Paul Curry in 1989. Paul was different. At 32, he was 13 years younger than Linda, short, unremarkable in appearance, and far from wealthy. But what he lacked in looks or money, he made up for in intellect, or so it seemed. Colleagues at Southern California Edison, where Paul worked as a consulting engineer, called him a genius. "He knows everything about everything," one coworker said. Paul boasted about winning $26,000 on Jeopardy! In the 1980s and being a member of Mensa, the high IQ society. To Linda, he was a dazzling mind, a man who spoke in baby talk nicknames and promised a future of intellectual companionship. She was smitten, Mary said. It wasn't about passion. It was about being with someone so brilliant. In September 1992, after 3 years of dating, Linda and Paul eloped to Las Vegas. Friends were skeptical. Paul had little to offer compared to Linda's wealth and status. He wasn't bringing much to the table, Frankie noted. She had the house, the career, the friends. What did he have? But Linda was in love, and for a brief moment, it seemed like she'd found her prince. Then, just a month into their marriage, Paul suggested something that set off alarm bells. "He wants to take out $1 million life insurance policy on me," Linda told Mary over the phone. "What do you think?" Mary's response was immediate. "Are you crazy? Why would you do that?" The idea planted a seed of doubt, but Linda brushed it aside. She already had several life insurance policies worth nearly $1 million, some naming Paul as the beneficiary. Why would he need more? As the months passed, Linda's life began to unravel. She noticed her bank account dwindling despite their combined income of $140,000 a year. Paul, it turned out, was hiding secrets. 2 ex-wives and 3 children he was financially supporting. He was sneaky about money, Linda confided to Mary. Worse, their marriage lacked intimacy. She told me they weren't having sex, Frankie recalled. Linda began to wonder if Paul truly loved her. In early 1993, Linda asked Frankie to move into their San Clemente home temporarily to watch Paul and gauge his sincerity. Frankie observed Paul doting on Linda, preparing exotic salad dressings, drawing her luxurious bubble baths every night. He loves you, Frankie reassured her. He can't do enough for you. Mary, too, was momentarily swayed by Paul's attentiveness. He'd make these fancy dressings and pamper her, she said. I thought, maybe he's not so bad. But the doubts lingered, like a shadow creeping across Linda's perfect life. The cry in July 1993, less than a year into her marriage, Linda fell mysteriously ill. She was exhausted, frail, and unrecognizable. I just don't feel like myself, she told friends. Her condition worsened rapidly, landing her in Samaritan Medical Center in San Clemente. Nurse Cher Bundy, assigned to Linda's care, noticed something alarming. The IV bag was cloudy, she recalled. I could see it under the overhead light. That's not right. The hospital sent the bag to the lab, and tests revealed lidocaine, a numbing agent, in the IV. Linda was hospitalized for 21 days, suffering a stroke and nearly dying. Police were called, and suspicion fell on Paul. In a taped interview from her hospital bed, Linda was asked, if someone were trying to poison you, who would have a motive? Her voice wavered. The only person I can think of is Paul. The only motive would be money. But I don't want to believe that. Linda recovered and returned home, still clinging to her love for Paul. He's such a good husband, she told friends, dismissing their warnings. But 5 months later, in December 1993, another mysterious illness struck. At a different hospital, Linda looked like death warmed over, according to Mary. Once again, an IV bag appeared tampered with, and an alarm went off shortly after a nurse saw Paul leave Linda's room. The hospital posted a sign. Mr. Curry is not allowed unaccompanied in the room. Linda told police Paul was racking up credit card debt, but she remained loyal. He's a wonderful man, she insisted. I love him. The police investigation stalled. No direct evidence linked Paul to the tampering. Linda went home again, but her friends were frantic. Get out of that house, Mary urged. He's trying to kill you. Linda admitted something was wrong. You're right, she told Mary. I need to get out. But the next day, she backtracked. No, I can't leave Paul, she said, her voice heavy with denial. Friends couldn't understand why she stayed. She loved him, Mary said. She died because she loved him. On June 9, 1994, Mary received an email from Paul. Linda was sicker than ever. That night, around midnight, Paul called 911. Linda was barely breathing. Despite his claims of performing CPR, paramedics found no heartbeat, no pulse. At the hospital, Linda was pronounced dead. The autopsy revealed a horrifying truth. Her body contained catastrophic levels of nicotine, 4 to 5 times higher than any recorded case. A puncture mark behind her right ear suggested an injection. Toxicology reports also found a massive dose of zolpidem, the generic form of Ambien, a sleeping medication. Linda's death was ruled a homicide. But how had a non-smoker ingested enough nicotine to kill her? And who had access to her in her final moments? The investigation into Linda Curry's death began immediately, but it was fraught with challenges. The medical examiner's findings pointed to nicotine poisoning, an unusual and deliberate method. Nicotine is one of the strongest poisons known, said Dr. Neil Benowitz, a leading nicotine expert. The levels in Linda's body were unprecedented. The puncture mark suggested an injection, and the presence of Ambien hinted at sedation before the fatal dose. Paul Curry, the only person with Linda during the 6 hours before her death, became the prime suspect. Detectives interviewed Paul, who claimed to be befuddled by Linda's illness. "I couldn't solve it, and the doctors couldn't either," he said coolly. But Linda's friends were convinced he was responsible. "He's a cold-blooded killer," Mary Siebold declared. "He thought he was smarter than everyone." They pointed to Paul's financial motives. Linda's life insurance policies, worth nearly $1 million, named him as a beneficiary. Mary also found a stack of life insurance documents on a dresser in their home, fueling her suspicions. "It was all laid out," she said. "He was planning to cash in." Yet, the case lacked direct evidence. No syringe was found. No witnesses saw Paul obtain nicotine or Ambien. The tampered IV bags from Linda's hospitalizations raised red flags, but no poison was conclusively linked to them, and fingerprints were absent. "This is a hard case," prosecutor Brahim Bey later admitted. "There's no smoking gun." The investigation went cold, and Paul walked free, collecting $419,000 from Linda's life insurance and retirement plan. He let her beloved San Clemente home slip into foreclosure and moved to Las Vegas, where he worked as a used car salesman before landing a job as a building inspector. In 2002, Sergeant Yvonne Scholl of the Orange County Sheriff's Department took over the cold case. She was struck by the audio tapes of Linda's hospital interviews from 1993. "The only person with a motive would be Paul," Linda had said, her voice tinged with doubt. Scholl dug into Paul's background and uncovered a web of lies. He wasn't an engineer. He didn't even have a college degree. His Mensa membership and Jeopardy! Winnings were exaggerated or fabricated. "Everything about Paul Curry was fake," Scholl said. For 4 years, she re-interviewed witnesses and rebuilt the case. In 2006, Scholl brought the case to prosecutor Brahim Bey, who spent 3 years studying the evidence. A breakthrough came when Bey consulted Dr. Benowitz, who confirmed the nicotine could have come from a pack of cigarettes. "You can extract 300 milligrams of nicotine from a single pack," Benowitz explained. "That's far above a lethal dose." He believed Linda was injected, likely after being sedated with Ambien, and died within 20 to 30 minutes. This timeline was critical. Paul was alone with Linda during that window. In 2010, Scholl tracked Paul to Salina, Kansas, where he lived with a new wife and son. To catch him off guard, Bey devised a ruse. Scholl posed as a local detective, Marie, claiming to tie up loose ends in a death investigation. Paul agreed to talk, confident he could outsmart them. "I thought, he's not as smart as he thinks," Scholl said. During the interview, Paul stuck to his story. He and Linda were alone, and he had no idea why she died. But Scholl pressed him. "I believe the cause of Linda's illness and death are at your hands," she said, reading him his rights. Paul kept talking, even asking about a 4 o'clock meeting he might missed. He was detached, impatient, Scholl recalled. It was chilling. She arrested him for murder, 16 years after Linda's death. Outcome and aftermath. In September 2014, Paul Curry stood trial for first-degree murder for financial gain, facing life without parole. Prosecutor Brahim Bey admitted the case relied on circumstantial evidence. "You're never going to hear exactly how Linda died," he told the jury. But nobody else had access to her in those 6 hours. He painted Paul as a calculating narcissist who sedated Linda with Ambien and injected her with nicotine extracted from cigarettes. A recorded phone call from Paul to his new wife, made after his arrest, sealed his fate. "It looks bad," he said. "There's no physical evidence, but they could put me away." The defense, led by attorney Lisa Kopelman, argued there was no proof Paul obtained nicotine or Ambien. They suggested Linda, Desperate for relief from chronic stomach issues, administered a nicotine enema herself, an idea Bae called baloney. After a day and a half of deliberation, the jury returned a verdict: guilty of first-degree murder. Linda's friends, holding her earrings for comfort, wept with relief. "I felt peace," Mary Siebold said. "But I wish it had come 20 years earlier." Paul was sentenced to life without parole. The case exposed his lies. He was no genius, just a conman who preyed on Linda's trust. The community mourned Linda, a woman whose love blinded her to danger. Media coverage highlighted the case's complexity, with outlets like 48 Hours dubbing it, "To Catch a Genius," for Paul's cunning facade. Closing reflection: Linda Curry's story is a haunting reminder that love can be a double-edged sword. She saw Paul as her prince, but he was a predator hiding behind a mask of brilliance. Her refusal to leave, despite red flags, speaks to the heart's power to override reason. As Mary Siebold said, she didn't want to admit she chose the wrong guy. This case leaves us wondering, how far would you go to believe in love, even when the truth is screaming to be heard?